Fabulous. Got quite a lot of early birds. A minute before we start, we've already got 10 folks in the room. Thanks everyone for joining so early. Really appreciate it. We might give it a couple minutes past 12 and then get kicking off. Hoping everyone's enjoying their Wednesday. It's beautiful weather. I'm based in Glasgow, but really nice here. It was cloudy all morning and got excellent throughout the day. Looking forward to jumping outside as well this afternoon. Might wait one more minute and then we can get cracking on. Yeah, all good. All right, I think we've probably reached a critical mass to start off. I'm just making sure, could you give me a thumbs up, Roy? You can hear me all fine? Excellent. All right. I think everyone's good to go. All right, we might start off. So, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today, especially over your lunch breaks. It's a Wednesday, but yeah, looking forward to hearing everyone's thoughts. So I'll briefly introduce myself. My name's Sally Matchett. I'm the project officer for the Scottish Forum on Natural Capital. So the Scottish Forum is a collaborative network, and we're all kind of working towards bringing natural capital into the mainstream decision making. And that's across public, private, and the third sectors. So if this is your first time at one of our events, I highly recommend you join us either online at our base camp or LinkedIn. I'll share that further on down the track in the webinar. We cover kind of all things related to natural capital, from nature finance to ferns projects, marine capital. We're talking about blue carbon at the minute. Job opportunities are shared. There's guidance across sustainable land management. There's kind of everything. So it's really valuable if you're interested in anything in the natural capital space. Today's webinar is a part of the Scottish Forum's wider efforts to connect experts, share knowledge, and hear thoughts and views to shape action and development across the policy space. So we're delighted to have Roy Richardson here today, Principal Policy Officer at the Scottish Environment Protection Agency, SEPA, and Roy's going to discuss River Basin Management Planning 4. We're also joined, although she won't be speaking, with Louise Bond, who is a part of the Scottish Forum on Natural Capital leadership team, and she's a Principal Policy Officer for Innovation at SEPA, and she's been a part of planning today's event. So thank you both for joining us. So I might quickly run over the agenda for today. So as you can see, we do some opening remarks, which you've already heard from myself. Then we've got a presentation from Roy on the history and the evolution of the RBMP in Scotland, the kind of current priorities and key actions, and how stakeholders can get engaged with RBMP4 and shape its development. After Roy's presentation, we'll move into the Q&A portion of today's event. Now, while we'll do our best to kind of answer as many questions as possible, there's quite a few of you on today's call. So we've also set up a Miro board to capture additional ideas and thoughts. And this will also help SEPA gather kind of all of your valuable input across the sectors. And then we'll wrap up with some closing remarks and next steps after today's webinar. So that's about it from me. I might hand over to Roy for the presentation part of today's webinar. Thank you. I'll just stop sharing.
Okay. Yep. Thanks, Sally. I'll just share my screen. So can you see that in presentation mode?
I can just see that in its main thumbnail.
Yeah, okay, let me have another go at that. We did practice this.
I can see it there. It's perfect.
Does that look good? Great. Good stuff. Okay, well, yeah, thank you for making time for this presentation. Sally said, Roy Richardson with SEPA. I'm the Principal Policy Officer for River Basin Management Planning, and I'm leading the work on reviewing and updating the River Basin Plan. Here to talk about Scotland's approach to River Basin Management Planning and some initial thoughts on how we incorporate a natural capital approach into the kind of the review and the update of the River Basin Plan. I'm hoping it will be a sort of a two-way sort of exchange of information and ideas. Hopefully you'll, although having looked at the list of participants, I know a lot of people are very familiar with RBMP, but hopefully you'll take something away in terms of understanding the River Basin Management Plan, and we, SEPA, can take something in terms of, more knowledge, more information on how we might take account of natural capital and opportunities around that in the review and the update of the River Basin Plan. So I've just got a few slides to go through, and then we can go into the kind of the Q&A session. So if I start with the basics then, in terms of what is the River Basin Management Plan, it's though prepared by SEPA, it's Scotland's plan for protection and improvement of the water environment. It's reviewed and updated every 6 years, covers rivers, lochs, groundwaters and coastal waters out to 3 nautical miles. Also covers a number of protected areas, including bathing waters, conservation areas, drinking water protected areas and shellfish waters. Like I say, it's prepared by SEPA, but it's approved, signed off by Scottish ministers. And we're currently in the 3rd cycle of River Basin planning, which takes us up until the end of 2027. And more on that in just a minute. This slide shows the process we go through in the River Basin Plan. It's the framework that's embedded in the legislation in the Water Framework Directive. We start with characterising the water environment, and that's everything really starts with the evidence on our understanding of the condition of the environment, pressures affecting the condition of the environment, and kind of risks and trends in the status of the water environment. Covers water quality, water resources or water quantity, the physical condition of the environment, fish migration and invasive non-native species. Once we have that understanding, then we're then using that set objectives for protection and improvement of the water environment. So there are 2 core objectives. One is to avoid harm, avoid deterioration, and all the work we do through permitting new activities, ensuring compliance with existing authorizations, licenses, input to the planning system, responding to pollution events, help deliver that protection objective. And then we also have a set of improvement objectives with the statutory aim of delivering good condition for the water environment over time. Based on the objectives, we then design and implement a program of measures that are designed achieve those objectives, and then monitor the effectiveness of that programme measures. The programme measures are for a range of public bodies, not just SEPA, and those public bodies have legal responsibilities, duties around implementing the programme measures, and that covers bodies such as Scottish Water, amongst others. This slide is a very quick overview of the characterisation that's in the current plan, River Basin Plan 3. Shows the condition of surface waters in Scotland. We're at around about 67% good or better condition. And it's also highlighting the main groups of pressures on the water environment. Raw diffuse pollution is the largest pressure category we have for water quality. We then have a large number of impacts from man-made barriers to fish migration, a lot of impact from the modification of rural rivers, the physical condition, that's straightening, loss of riparian vegetation in embankments, and then in terms of water quantity, water resources, the largest sort of group of impacts that are around water use for hydropower generation. The objectives are set out in the plan around the themes of water quality, water resources, fish migration, and physical condition, and they are rolled up into an overall objective for the condition of the water environment. We're currently, when we published the plan, we're at 66% good or better. That's currently around 67% good or better. And the long-term objective is through the actions we deliver to get the water environment in Scotland up to 90% good or better. There's 10% of the environment where less stringent objectives have been set, where the actions are deemed to be either disproportionately expensive or not technically feasible to deliver. So you can see there's a large amount of improvement planned within the River Basin Plan. So about a quarter of Scotland's water environment has action that is intended to deliver improvements in water quality, water resources, the condition of the environment, and the subsequent benefits that will provide for wildlife, for people, and for businesses. This slide just gives a very quick overview of the programme measures in the River Basin Plan. So for water quality, like I was saying earlier, the biggest pressure we have there is from raw diffuse pollution, and there's a programme of priority catchment work across 57 catchments where a team in SEPA is going out and engaging with the sector, engaging with farmers, raising awareness of the regulations around diffuse pollution and driving up compliance rates with those regulations. The other bit of work on water quality is the other large bit of work is with Scottish Water, where we're reviewing operations and sort of conditions at 40 wastewater treatment works, and that is driving the Scottish Water investment programme to deliver improvements. On the water quantity, water resource side, a large amount of work going into working with the hydropower sector, reviewing operations and licences at 34 hydropower schemes across Scotland. Also working with other sectors on the water use, including irrigators. For fish migration, the plan identified 244 artificial barriers to fish migration, and there's a programme of going out, identifying the owners of those structures and working with them to ease passage. And then in terms of river restoration, there's a big focus through the Water Environment Fund on delivering improvements in communities and urban areas, restoring urban rivers, creating green-blue infrastructure and all of the amenity and well-being and health benefits that's providing for people. So a lot of activity planned and being delivered through the current River Basin Plan. This is where you can find all the information on the River Basin Plan. It's in the Water Environment Hub. There's the high-level summary document, PDF document, you can view and download, as well as an interactive data tool that allows you to look at the data at a number of different scales, look at a number of different themes and elements within the River Basin Plan. You can look at the current condition, you can look at the pressures, look at objectives, and look at the actions that are planned. and each water body within the plan then has more detailed information available for it. So in terms of where we are then, that's a brief, quick overview of the third River Basin Plan. Like I said at the beginning, these are updated, reviewed and updated every 6 years. We're currently just over halfway through this third cycle, so are starting the work this year on the review and the update. The first main step in that review and update is a consultation, which is due by the end of the year. We're actually aiming to publish it in October, on the significant water management issues for future cycles of river basin management planning. So what we see as the main challenges going forward for the water environment in Scotland. That will be followed by a consultation on a updated set of objectives and programme of measures at the end of next year. And if all goes well with the consultation, ministers are happy, we'll look to publish an updated plan in December 2027. So there's a kind of a long history to the work that's gone into river basin planning since the Water Framework Directive was published back in 2000. So we've been through 3 cycles of river basin planning, largely built around SEPA's role as a regulator. So, ensuring compliance with diffuse pollution rules, reviewing operations, reviewing discharges, and the process has been very effective in terms of affording protection to the water environment through the new powers that SEPA have been given, but also in terms of driving steady improvements, whether that's through investment with Scottish Water or increased compliance with the regulations around diffuse pollution, or investment through the Water Environment Fund on restoration projects. I think by any measure, the framework has worked well in terms of, like I say, protection and delivering steady improvements. So as we're kind of coming towards 2027, we're on track to have somewhere around about 75% of the water environment in good or better condition in the long term. So there's still a gap to close there in terms of where Scotland needs to be in terms of having a water environment that's kind of sustainable and fit for the future and resilient to climate change. So that's really the challenge we're facing in terms of thinking about RBMP4, which is the next section I just want to quickly talk through with you. So given that we've had three cycles of river basin planning, a long history in terms of how we've been thinking about the plan and delivering the plan, reaching the end of the third cycle and thinking ahead was a good opportunity to kind of take a step back and sort of take stock of the approach we're taking to river basin planning in Scotland. And we found that these kind of these questions, first asking, why it is we should care about the river basin plan or take it forward, is a kind of key question before then thinking about how we approach it, before finally thinking about the kind of what it is we do and what it is we deliver in terms of information and data and actions on the ground. I think there's a risk if we don't take a step back at this stage, we carry on with a similar kind of set of processes and information and data that we've been developing over the last 3 cycles. So in terms of thinking about that first kind of fundamental question of why it is we should carry on with the river basin plan, and why people should care about it and invest in it. I mean, there's, I guess, a simple answer to that, which is the law tells us we need to do it. But I don't think that's enough, particularly at the moment in terms of pressure on public finances, in terms of the need for public service reform. So we really do need some good reasons for beyond just the legislation for wanting to do this as a kind of nation, for Scotland to want to have a framework around river basin planning. And when we've looked at this with colleagues, with other stakeholders, with various people in government and elsewhere, really came out with quite a compelling reason why the river basin plan matters for Scotland. And that's because how we manage the water environment is central to Scotland's ambitions in a number of really important areas, not least in terms of climate adaptation, in terms of nature recovery and restoration, in terms of public health, and also Scotland's ambitions to be a world leader in sustainable and regenerative agriculture. All of these things require us to have a sustainable and a well-managed water environment. And the key strategies and plans in these areas, including the Scottish National Adaptation Plan, the Scottish Biodiversity Strategy, the Agricultural Reform Programme, all directly reference action within the water environment. So that's, I think, a compelling reason for why the water environment and the framework matters. What we wanted to do next is really think about what we can build on, what we can build on, and what we need to address in terms of the last 3 cycles of River Basin Planning. So to support that, we've been through a process of thinking about carrying out a SWOT analysis of River Basin Planning to think about its strengths that we can build on, weaknesses we need to address, opportunities we can take advantage of, and the threats we need to sort of consider and mitigate against in order to really create something that will be fit for the future. And what we've distilled from that is a number of principles to really inform the development of the 4th River Basin Plan. These include, we've been through a process of planning for the last 3 cycles. We think it's right to think ahead to the next 3 cycles, which will take us from 2027 up to 2045, which fits really nicely with the government's ambitions around restoring nature, being resilient to climate change, being net zero. So we think that kind of time frame is appropriate for for thinking about what we do after 2027 to plan ahead. We really want to make the information within the River Basin Plan relevant and accessible to other policy areas. We need to take better account of climate change and risk within our analysis. That's clearly one of the kind of the weaknesses around the current River Basin Plan, but also ensure there's governance and accountability beyond SEPA for the delivery, the delivery of the ambitions in the plan. The last 3 cycles, like I said, have been built around SEPA's role as a regulator, but to really close that gap and to take us to where Scotland needs to be in terms of its water environment, it's going to have to build on that and go beyond that and really address some of the sort of systemic issues that are affecting the water environment in terms of land use choices and sort of decisions that we're seeing impacts from. So we really need to find a way of expanding it beyond that core role of SEPA to identify these more systemic approaches, identify win-wins, and, like I say, to deliver the water environment that Scotland needs to be fit for the future. And as part of that, we really want to really focus on demonstrating the economic case for protection and improvement of the water environment. And that's where we see natural capital as having a real essential role to play kind of going forward. So in terms of that, I think a key to addressing some of the systemic issues we see, some of the outstanding problems that we see in the water environment, and identifying win-wins and linking to other policy areas, it will be thinking about natural capital will be key to this. And it is based on the principle that if you take care of the way land is managed, the rivers themselves will to some extent respond to that and look after themselves. And if you're degrading natural capital, if you're degrading these natural assets, we'll see, and we do see, the impacts of that on the water environment and the data we collect in terms of the way we sort of classify and monitor the water environment. The data we have on the water environment really is a health check on the state of land use, both rural and urban land use. It's a way of really taking the pulse of the health of land use within catchments. And I think that through investing and protecting natural assets, by driving investment into those natural assets, we will in turn see that impact on the way we measure and we monitor the water environment and the way it's classified, which in turn will lead to the benefits that a whole range of different policy areas, sectors have an interest in. Those benefits that a healthy water environment provides for nature, for climate adaptation, for food security, and for public health. Now, I'm interested in how we can use this framework and how we can use this data, this information, this knowledge to drive public investment. But also, of course, there are lots of examples of taking this knowledge, taking this data to help drive private investment. So there are existing, of course, existing natural capital and nature markets for carbon, for biodiversity, including biodiversity, net gain in England, which is driving investment. Existing markets for water quality, again, down south around sort of nutrient trading, as well as markets around flood risk resilience and flood risk mitigation, that I'm hoping we can learn from and incorporate and use going forward in north of the border in Scotland. And also I'm very conscious that there are existing initiatives and projects underway in Scotland that we can learn from and tie into and sort of incorporate with the River Basin Plan, including rather than relying on market mechanisms, sort of direct trading arrangements such as the landscape enterprise networks, putting suppliers, land managers of these services and in touch with the people with an interest in the benefits that are being provided. And also models such as this from the Wye Rivers Trust of blended finance approaches to combining public investment with private investment, as well as mechanisms that are driven through markets with sort of direct trading. So lots I think we can learn and incorporate and hopefully build into the approach to the River Basin Plan going forward, like I say, to be able to address some of the sort of the outstanding systemic and legacy issues that we're having to deal with beyond, looking ahead beyond 2027. So in terms of next steps, just to finish up quickly, we have a consultation planned for October of this year on the significant water management issues for Scotland going forward, and that will reference the need to incorporate this kind of approach and this kind of thinking within the review and the update of the River Basin Plan. There's a CREW project about to be awarded on River Basin planning and natural capital to try and build some of the data, some of the understanding, review the current state of knowledge around the linkages between natural assets, the condition of the water environment, and the benefits it's providing, that hoping we can use to build some of the decision-making tools and data and information in the right format. And the real focus at the moment on reviewing and updating the characterisation as part of the River Basin Plan, including incorporating a climate risk assessment and an economic analysis as part of that, built on, again, hopefully built on taking account of a natural capital approach. And internally, we're working on closer ties with flood risk management because of the emphasis that it is also placing on catchment approaches and nature-based solutions. So Sally, that's me done with the slides. Hopefully that's enough to prompt
fabulous.
some discussion, and we can take it from.
Yeah, thank you so much for that presentation, Roy. It was excellent. Just before we dive into the Q&A, a little bit of housekeeping. So with the Q&A, we'll do a bit of a mix. So at the bottom of your screen, there's a Q&A function on the Zoom screen to submit your questions. If you've got a burning question, you can put your hand up and we can answer it verbally. in the Zoom Q&A function as well, if you see a question that you find really interesting, give it an upvote, because we'll be prioritizing the most voted questions first, because there are quite a few on the chat. And then the final thing is that because there are so many people on the webinar, we thought it would be a great opportunity to capture some of your thoughts. So we've created a Miro board, which I'll just quickly put into the Zoom chat here. You can click on that and head there. It's pretty simple to use. We've kind of just created 3 simple questions around the greatest opportunities for natural capital, some of the challenges that you may foresee in your field or otherwise, and then kind of ideas and queries you want to share with SEPA in shaping the RBMP4. It's optional, but if you're open to kind of further discussion or you want SEPA to follow up with you, you can add your email address along with the comments, and we can keep you in the loop. But I may give everyone a few minutes to explore the Miro board, reflect on Roy's presentation, and start the Q&A session. So I can actually see here we've already got 2. We've got one from Fiona Sterling. Thanks, Fiona. The question is the way forward to focus RBMP within a strategic catchment partnership planning model?
Yes, I think that's a really good question, and there's no doubt. I think the approach we've delivered, we've been taking to delivering improvements to date has been more kind of sector focused. So working with particular sectors such as Scottish Water, hydropower operators, farmers to sort of drive improvements. But in order, I think, like I say, to go beyond that, to go further, is going to require more of a catchment-based approach and catchment working, catchment partnerships. How that's done, who does it, the resources involved in it is going to be challenging. I think what we need, from a river basin planning point of view, what I wanted to ensure is that we make sure that the data we're producing, the information, is available and useful, and is having impact within those catchments, so that when people do come together to plan more systemic approaches and identify win-wins across a number of policy areas, that they have the right information on the water environment to make good decisions and to drive investment in the right areas.
Fabulous, thank you. We've got, sorry everyone, I just realized that you probably couldn't see the link to the Miro board. I've just added again into the webinar chat, so hopefully you should be able to get through there. The second question is from Chris. So it says, to what degree do you think the efficacy of RBMP is limited by data availability, for example, detecting localized issues? And to what degree will the next round of RBMP tap into third-party work, for example, academic and innovation, to make advances in the evidence base? There are particular challenges on the resolution, spatial and temporal, of data in transitional and coastal waters. So your thoughts here are especially welcome.
Yeah, no, thanks, Chris. And I know we touched on this briefly. I talked about this briefly, but I mean, the like I said earlier, I think that the strength of the River Basin Plan is driven by data. It is driven by evidence. The framework is built around characterizing the issues, the problems, and then focusing action to target that. But that, of course, means it's only as good as that evidence base. There's a huge amount of field-based work, lab analysis, modeling that goes into that characterization and that evidence base. So I think it's largely worked well in terms of identifying the main problems. But I think going forward, the challenge will be to join it up with other sources of information, to expand that evidence base, and to bring information from other places together. I know as part of public service reform, and agencies are working together to look at how to do that, and working with academic institutions to look at how to bring information evidence together, so that we are making decisions based on the best available information. And you are kind of correct to point out the issue around transitional and coastal waters, I think, is probably where it's starkest in terms of the River Basin Plan. There's I guess more of an emphasis on the freshwater and groundwater sort of environment within River Basin planning. And again, that's something we would like to look at, like to sort of pick up and develop with the the marine planning framework and agencies that are working in that area, responsible in that area.
Wonderful, thank you. I just might allow Chris. Chris, does that answer your question? I've just allowed you to talk and speak if you...
Yeah, no, I think, thank you, Sally and Roy. Yeah, I think so. That's good, and that's a useful sort of marker, I suppose, and keen to pick that conversation up in different ways.
Fabulous, thanks, Chris. The next one we've got is from Neil Bancroft. The question is, if the catchment assessment is likely taking the pulse and health of land use and 40% are below acceptable condition, how do we address this in land management practices? Any thoughts?
Yeah, I think what we've been driving a lot of improvements in in water quality in particular. There's more to do around water quantity, water resources in terms of land use, land management. But I think the remaining gap is really down to how we choose to use land and how we produce food. I think in Scotland, so, I think it's particularly intensively farmed catchments where I think regulation can only go so far. If we really need to think about our agricultural system and the sort of incentive, the right mix of sort of incentives and regulation for the working with the sector to really address some of those widespread issues that we see in terms of water quality in particular. And the government and the sector have the right ambitions. But in terms of Scotland being world leading in sustainable and regenerative agriculture, but you've got to we need to take the sector with us. We need to do it with the sector. We need to ensure that we're protecting food security at the same time. That we're it's not an easy transition, I think, from where we are now to kind of where we need to be, and particularly in the face of climate change and the impact that will have around water quantity and water resources. So there's a lot of work to do on that, but it's something SEPA can't do alone as a regulator. It is really a wider effort.
Yeah, definitely. Neil, I'll just allow you to talk. Does that answer your question? Do you have any further thoughts on that one?
Thank you.
Maybe having some sound issues.
Yeah. I don't know if you can hear me, but that's good. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. Next, we've got from Kathleen Stosh. Is there an estimate to what degree the improvement in ecological status of Scottish water bodies is due to unrelated changes in land use, such as deindustrialisation, improved efficiency of applying farm nutrients, rather than the effectiveness of RBMP measures?
Yeah, that's interesting question. To have to think about it a little bit.
Yeah, no worries. We can take that one on notice. We've got one from Patricia. Does the RBMP take into account how the frequency and scale of land instability events, for example, landslide, peat slide, arising from land use change and climate change, impact on the quality of the water environment?
I mean, some of my colleagues on the call may know more about this than I do, but largely no. I think would be my answer at the moment. And the whole issue around, I guess, risk associated with climate change is something that we're looking to incorporate within the RBMP going forward. In terms of the SWOT analysis I referred to briefly, that was absolutely one of the weaknesses. One of the acknowledged weaknesses of the current plan is really doesn't take account of future climate risks, and we need to get much better at doing that. So as part of the review and the update of the characterization this time, we are looking to incorporate climate risks more into thinking about long-term conditions and actions and that are going to be required to mitigate those risks.
Excellent, thank you. Patricia, I've just allowed you to speak. Does that make sense? And you're happy with that? Okay, maybe not. Oh, we've got... Yeah, I think that's fine. Perfect. Thank you so much. Okay, so does anybody have any other questions? You can raise your hand in the participants as well, and I can just allow you to speak. Otherwise, we can move to the Miro board. Okay, great. Oh, let me just make sure. Neil Bancroft, this might be a bit of a specific question, and again, might have to take it on notice. There's another Q&A. What percentage of the total number of wastewater treatment works are being addressed with the 40 you listed? Might not have the granularity of that on you right now.
Yeah, I mean, a number of them are still at kind of the study scoping stage with Scottish Waters. They're looking at, you know, what the requirements are, what's needed. But there are around, yeah, sort of 10 to 15, I think. Don't quote me. I know this has been recorded, but that kind of order of magnitude where the licenses have already, you know, studies have been completed, the licenses have already been reviewed, been revised to reflect that, and the works are in the sort of delivery stage now.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, great. Keep the questions coming and I'll keep checking back in. We'll go to the Miro board to see, just share my screen. Can you see that one?
Yep.
Okay, so there's a bit of movement in and out, but we've got here some of the high impact opportunities. So for example, riparian planting promising for multiple benefits for climate change resilience and biodiversity for an option. Also identification of ecosystem services and data monitoring to then monetize. That's great. We've got greatest opportunity potential as well, potential to pilot catchment scale investment planning based on ecosystem services, delivery across multiple policy objectives, but we'll need public investment at the development stage. It's really interesting. Thank you for adding that one. What else have we got? Rehabilitation of ex-industrial sites using bioremediation. And then we've got opportunity to identify and prioritize interventions that deliver multiple benefits for water quality, biodiversity, flood management, joined up as a holistic approach. All fantastic ideas. We've also got ambition to broaden improvement measures to a broader catchment-based approach. However, this is going to require clever tailoring with emergent nature markets and probably incorporating blended and public finance. That's great. Really great. Thank you, everybody. And then I might move over to some of the questions or thoughts. Let's have a look. Okay, so one comment is there's lots of opportunities to align with activities and outputs of the Riverwoods project.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm sure you're already aware of that one.
Yeah, there was a great evidence review as part of that project that's, yeah, really helping to inform some of this work.
Excellent. Ensure the narrative is aligned with natural capital approach by enabling buy-in and consistency with other policies in the natural capital space. It's great.
Yeah, I think that's important.
We've got natural capital approaches can lead to investment, but can also just be about better recognition of multiple benefits of nature in decision-making. What else have we got? We've got restoration of upland woodlands through natural regeneration and increased deer management would make a positive contribution to achieving goals. SEPA should be advocating for this. Yeah,
I think really interested in, as part of this CREW project and as part of the sort of wider evidence review, looking at the role woodlands can play in terms of that directly affecting what we see and monitoring the water environment. So absolutely. Yeah.
Definitely. What else we got? RBMP currently very focused on the immediate surrounds of the water environment rather than the role of the wider landscape/catchment. Is regulatory reform needed to drive this broader view, or is it a policy approach sufficient?
Yeah, I think regulations achieved an awful lot in this space for the water environment in Scotland. In comparison with the rest of the UK and the rest of Europe, I think we're in a great position. it's largely been built around SEPA's core role as a regulator. But like I say, I think the challenge going forward is it is more about the wider policy landscape and particularly choices we make and investment decisions we make, and just ensuring that when those decisions are made, they're done with the right information available, and particularly around valuing nature as part of that.
Excellent. I had just a smaller question just around what were the bigger lessons learned from the first 3 cycles. You may not have been there for, the whole shebang, but,
Unfortunately, unfortunately I was. Well, I had a cycle.
Well, excellent. Then you might be excellent to answer it.
I took cycle 2 out to go and work on flood management plans, but came back.
Fabulous. Well, yeah, what were some of the biggest lessons learned from RBMP3, and how are those kind of 3 cycles shaping how you'll develop and implement this time? Are there any kind of core ones? I know that the principles that you showed were pretty reflective of that, but does anything else come to mind?
Yeah, I mean, like I say, tried to touch on in the presentation. There's a lot of history to how we've developed river basin planning, and a lot of lessons that have been learned. So for example, the priority catchment work for rural diffuse pollution has developed and evolved through the cycles, and that's been a great example of something that's been developed collaboratively with the sector. And we've raised awareness of the issue, we've driven compliance with the regulations, and are now seeing real benefits in terms of sort of outcomes from that, both for the water environment, but also for farmers in terms of in terms of the sort of management of the land and their inputs to the land. So I think in all areas, that's one example of the diffuse pollution work. But in the work on the Water Environment Fund, the way we've gone about selecting, identifying projects, and then delivering those projects has continually improved and developed over time. On the other part of the regulatory side, in terms of license reviews, working with operators, we're getting to the real sticky bit at the moment in terms of having to take difficult decisions and being quite robust with a number of different operators in terms of driving improvements. But again, that's been a gradual evolution and development over the 3 cycles. So I think the current approach, like I say, is developed well. We've learned well. We've adapted it where needed, and I think by any comparison, by any measure, it's delivered. It's delivered well for Scotland, but it does need to. We do need to reflect on it and build on it for the future, to take account of climate and to address some of these wider systemic issues that are more than just the river basin plan and are more than just SEPA's role as a regulator.
Yeah, definitely. I can see comment here about we're going to need more collaborative sector leadership around catchment planning, effectively bridging the issues of administrative boundaries and making the issues and route to delivery clearer and relevant locally, which I think kind of echoes what you're saying.
Yeah, and there's work in that space actively ongoing at the moment as part of this space, but as part of delivering things like the Scottish Biodiversity Strategy and the National Adaptation Plan. So agencies are coming together and are kind of responding to that challenge.
Definitely. I might just do one more from the board and then I'll stop sharing and go back to the Q&A. How can you address real-time recording of water quality to identify the problems quickly and contain the damage? Yeah, tough question, but something to keep in mind. Okay, go back to stop sharing my screen so I can have a look at what's happening in the Q&A. Does anybody have any further questions that they'd like to raise their hand and we can allow you to talk? Any thoughts on the presentation? It's got plenty of information in the Miro board, which is excellent. There's a comment around here that says, agree with the need to maximise alignment with other policies and strategies, for example, SNAP 3, flood resilience, biodiversity. Also need to align delivery with place-based initiatives, e.g. living landscapes, regional adaptation, partnerships, etc.
Yeah. yeah,
Fantastic.
that's a good comment.
Another question here around how can those of us involved in catchment planning input our experience on what the challenge is and what would help bridge to the next /better practice?
Yeah, I think the consultation we're going to launch later this year, so keep an eye out for that. The SEPA, SEPA web pages and through those SEPA kind of comms channels. Input into that, responding to that would be very useful. The CREW project we're about to launch on RBMP and natural capital, we'll have a sort of stakeholder element to it as well. So keep an eye on news and channels around that. To try and input there would be useful through this forum as well.
Yeah, definitely.
So, absolutely, yeah.
Another kind of comment around working with local experts in river management to identify locally relevant and doable improvement actions.
Mm-hmm.
And then another comment, just more of a question, will Scottish Forestry be compelled to prioritise ecological enhancement?
Yeah, I mean, Scottish Forestry are, have responsibilities under the River Basin Plan, legal duties to use their functions to deliver this stuff. So, and they're a key, as a fellow regulator, they're a key, partner agency in delivering these improvements.
Fantastic. Just in terms of ideas, again, don't forget the relationship with geomorphology process, river geomorphology and wider processes in land.
Yeah, no, I'm a signed up river geomorphologist. So my PhD was in river geomorphology, so it's always at the back of my mind.
Fabulous. There's another question around how do you work with BEAR to improve highway dispersed pollution?
Yes, BEAR Scotland, the highways, delivery body for Transport Scotland. Yeah, I mean that's a very specific question.
Yeah,
I'd need some of my regulatory colleagues to answer that. But they're certainly captured by the regulatory side of the framework in terms of protecting the environment.
Fabulous, great. I think we've gone over all of the ideas and comments and questions. We've also got a bunch of what are the biggest challenges in applying natural capital approaches? So a lot of comments around data or lack of robust data, time and resources to monitor data is a big one. More comments around consistency of funding over multiple political cycles to have a long-term benefit to ecology so that community leaders can be supported is a challenge that's coming up. Being able to monetize the benefits to society of RBMP for robust appraisal. Planning and policy and permissions for development should mandate nature-based measures for things like NFM and supporting sustainable water flows in times of drought, for example. Seeking alignment with other policies, national investment and incentives, for example, national infrastructure, transport, energy and agriculture is another one that's come up. One comment here saying a big challenge is simply how we effectively layer up spatial data across sectoral and disciplinary interests in public sector organisations to get a shared sense of the wider geographic issues, needs and opportunities. Yeah, that's a real challenge. There's a lot of data out there and something we do need to look at and need to get better at bringing together all the various data sets that exist. Similarly to that, working simultaneously with quantitative and qualitative information in a way that doesn't undervalue the benefits that can't be quantified or monetized. Yeah, well said. Excellent. Well, I've got no more questions and we've only got about 5 minutes left, so we might have a bit of an early mark, but what I will do is thank you so much, Roy, for coming and presenting to us today. It's been excellent and really valuable. Thank you for making the time for it. No, I really appreciate it. I'm just going to put in the Zoom chat here for those interested a couple of links. So one, if you're interested in joining the Basecamp where we kind of advertised this, there's a link there. There's a LinkedIn where we'll be putting up more events or follow-ons if there's other RBMP based stuff going on. And if you've got any questions, you can email me on these links. But other than that, I've got the one question that we can come back to in terms of Kathleen's around what degree of improvement, and we'll get back to you, Kathleen, on that one. But feel free to reach out, and thanks for filling out the Miro board. We're going to upload these and take the notes down, so SEPA will have a copy and we'll put it on the Basecamp as well.
Great.
Excellent. Well, thank you everybody so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Have a lovely afternoon.
Okay, bye.